next, let me introduce our panel. Madeleine Smit, non-executive director at Alpina Group and Geldmaat. Helen Taub, founder and managing director at HT Consulting. And Hamed Sadegian, CEO at Nearfield Instruments. Give them a warm welcome.
Yes. Welcome on stage. And to start, Madeleine, in a few moments we will give you the floor, of course, and people who attended CIO Day last year, the year before that, and the year before that, they know that the stage is in great hands with you. But we will ask the audience one more question in Mentimeter. When it goes to diversity and inclusion, what do you expect from a tech leader? And you can fill it out in Mentimeter right now. And of course, you are a tech leader yourself. So you can also put out into the system in 1 or 2 short sentences what you do regarding diversity and inclusion. Now, we see the first reactions coming up: vision, inspiration, respect.
Lead by example.
Lead by example, of course. Hopefully you do that as well, because that's up to our panel. Engineering skills also.
Empathy.
Humanity and a clear sense of purpose.
Wow. Very deep.
That's very deep.
Philosophical.
It's also philosophical, yes. It's a truly philosophical day. Also, points about culture, having an open mind. We leave the floor to you. And
thank you very much. There's a lot of food for thought there. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
So Helen, let me maybe start with you. You've worked in diversity and equity and gender-based leadership all your life. And we have a lot of people here who think with the left-hand side of their brain. Throw some numbers at us. Okay. What does the data tell us?
I'm happy to throw in some numbers. I first wanted to start by acknowledging that it's International Men's Day today, and giving a nod to the many men in the room. And the reason I'm doing that, you can imagine at a tech conference, that you're an easy catch, given the high representation of men in this room. But it's also because I firmly believe that if we're going to foster diversity, equity, and inclusion, we need to bring men and women and non-binary people together. DI isn't about sidelining men. It's actually about embracing all identities, backgrounds, ways of working and leading in a very, very complex societal environment, because we know it drives innovation, it retains our very best talent, and also it delivers business value. So to kind of dive into some of the figures, and if we look at the tech sector here in the Netherlands, I'm afraid to say the Netherlands is really missing out on an opportunity to compare to other European countries. The Netherlands has the lowest share of women in science, technology, engineering, and maths. Women currently represent 19% of the tech workforce, and that's going down, whereas other countries are going up. And if you look at the most senior levels of leadership in the tech sector, you're looking at around about 13% women, 25% non-Dutch backgrounds. So that isn't a situation that we can live with. And if we really need to kind of change the situation, we need to be kind of changing that. In terms of the benefits of actually fostering more diverse leaders and workforce in tech, we know that through the McKinsey study that's been lasting over the last 10 years, if you have a more gender or ethnically diverse leadership team, you have a 39% greater likelihood of financial outperformance.
So that's what we like, right? We like that financial outperformance.
Yeah, and financial outperformance, and also in terms of market share, 45% greater likelihood, and in terms of capturing a new market, 70%. So those are really, really big figures that should be waking people up to take seriously the fact that we need more women and other marginalized groups in all layers of our workforce.
And potentially 50% of your clientele, right? 50% of the world are women. But diversity, equity, and inclusion is not only a male-female situation. And Hamed, you are the founder of a relentlessly innovative deep tech company in the ecosystem of ASML. And you need a lot of brains, different kinds of brains. Can you explain why you're so passionate about diversity and inclusion?
Main reason is it's much more fun to work with diverse colleagues, but we see direct effect in our business as well. In a deep tech proposition, there are a lot of hidden risks. And the majority of big tech companies fail because of hidden risks that are not brought to the surface, to the table. And often there is a good correlation with the team, if it is like-minded, if they only look at it from one window, from one perspective. When you have a diverse team, you have the potential to cover risks from different angles, managing unavoidables and avoiding unmanageable.
So spotting your blind spots, really.
Right.
Yeah.
That you have the potential. But if you do not manage to also make an inclusive environment, then they don't speak up. So still you have challenge. So that's the main reason, because we discover a lot of more risks, challenges, much earlier in the life cycle of our products, and then we can tackle them with this team.
Yeah, so all these perspectives make you much stronger. And of course, I know that you scour around the world to find the top 0.1% of brains from the best universities. So you really are completely racial and gender blind. But I'm sure that brings some challenges as well. Given the geopolitics right now, I know the diversity in your office is really big. So what did you need to do? How did you have to stretch as a leader to accommodate this diverse group?
I think making a diverse community, I call, is much less of a challenge than making them feel included. We all have our unconscious biases, and by definition, I like unconsciously to be among others of like myself. And by definition, consequently, I am included. There's no challenge there. The challenge is when you have a diverse team and you need to make them include, feeling that they are included. That's challenging. Coming from different perspectives, coming from different culture, coming from different minorities, biases that they have seen, and creating an atmosphere, an environment that they feel they are heard. Their opinion, their concerns are being taken into account as well. That's a challenge.
And one way to achieve that is through sponsoring, right? To amplify voices. Helen, I know this is something that's also very close to your heart. Do you want to?
No, I mean, what Hamid just said about being heard and being seen, I mean, that really came through the research that I've recently done for INSEAD Business School. It was prompted when I read an article that said that women are consistently over-mentored yet under-sponsored. In fact, there's a 54% difference. If you look at black professionals as well, they have a 60% likelihood of advancing their careers if they're sponsored compared to their unsponsored peers. So I researched that by interviewing a wide range of corporate leaders across many industries and particularly tech. 2/3 of those were men, actually, who actually found a way to sponsor their diverse talent rather than mentoring. And sponsorship, just to clarify, is where you're not only giving your greater experience and professional advice to that aspiring professional, you're actually doing the work to talk highly of them amongst your own leadership peer and with your own hierarchy. So you're actually their very best champion, knowing the biases, the implicit ones as much as the explicit, and really doing the work to make sure they're seen and they're heard and they're recognized for the talent that they ultimately bring to the leadership table.
Absolutely. Any thoughts for companies who don't have a sponsoring system, or do they need a system, or can they just start? So if people here say, okay, those financial gains, we totally need them, how do we get started? What are your top tips?
Yeah. So, I mean, what came through the research was how important it is to formalize sponsorship approaches. 91% of all of the corporate leaders I interviewed, and as I said, many of them were men, said that sponsorship is highly instrumental or instrumental in advancing women and other diverse talents' careers compared to mentoring, coaching, training, and the many other forms of classic leadership development that we have in organizations. So I do think we need to formalize it. That can be a dedicated program, or it can actually be built into the way that we develop our leaders. It is, in my view, a leadership competence to know how to reach out and actually engage in conversations with people who are seemingly different. And to do the work, as I say, to then really speak highly of them and really open those doors to opportunities that really make a difference in progressing their career.
Yeah, so in the category, don't encourage me, pay me, right? So with the world is in geopolitical turmoil right now, and we all know about the events in Amsterdam recently. Those kinds of challenges, how do you deal with them in the office? Do they spill into the office, or?
Our culture is being open and full transparency, but respect. So all our employees have their own, beliefs and political views and religion views. They can discuss, but with all respects, without having an accusation towards other groups. We don't let that happen, and the consequence is big. We don't tolerate such a behavior, so we take it very, very, very serious. Otherwise, it starts to damage the culture, it starts to damage the inclusion work that we have done.
So really being vigilant on,
Yes.
on safety, psychological safety for people.
Absolutely.
Because then they can also bring their full selves, right? So they can be seen, they can be heard, they can dress the way they want and be whoever they want to be. Final thoughts from you, Helen?
Well, I just kind of call on everyone in the room to really think about that difference between mentoring and sponsorship in terms of actions that you can take. Actually be a sponsor rather than only a mentor, and kind of really engage with your HR colleagues and other leaders so that can be introduced more consistently within organization. It does create a real cultural shift, and as I say, has a real difference in terms of retaining the very best talent where we actually need it, in the evolution of tech.
Ahmed, final thoughts from you?
We all have our unconscious biases. I often hear that my peers in other companies say, well, we don't have a problem. We don't hear any problem. The fact that you don't hear the problem, it says that you have a big problem. So we all should pay attention to our unconscious biases, and it comes back to the sponsorships, allyship, to let those talents, those minorities, a diverse team to speak up as well.
And finally, we call on all of you, those words that you put up for us in the beginning. I hope that you will also breathe, walk, and live them, because that's the way that we will build an inclusive future where women can get angry and men can cry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Madeleine, Helen, and Ahmed. Thank you very much. We move on to the next part of the program. I heard a really nice points of view from you. Equal pay for equal work, of course. And that, ladies and gentlemen, on International Men's Day.